Okay. Good morning. Welcome. Good morning. Welcome. Good afternoon, wherever you're at. Hold on one second over here. Let me just put this on.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Okay. Let's take this off speaker. All right. Welcome to Moshiach Matters class. Today, a very, 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 very important class. It's important because today we were given, tonight really is the anniversary of the time that we were given the charge by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Tonight is going to be Chav Ches Nisan. And I think we're hitting the 27th anniversary of Chav Ches Nisan, in which we were told, Tut als was ihr kennt, to do everything you're able to do. And after that very, 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 what would you say, powerful or awakening and call, and what might say, earth-shattering call, that now it's up to us. We were not left hanging in the dark and told, and not given any guidance at all, chas v'shalom. We were told what needs to be done. What needs to be done was everything we were doing before, but with far more energy and focus on the Geula, intensifying that tremendously. In addition to that, in order to put ourselves into a state of Moshiach, and into a state of yearning for Moshiach, and acting and taking responsibility to bring Moshiach, we need to know about Moshiach, because if we don't know about Moshiach, we can't be excited about Moshiach. And how do we know about Moshiach? By learning about it. And where do we learn about it? In the Torah. So we were told to study and learn about Moshiach so we can fill ourselves with knowledge, information, thereby connect ourselves deeply to the great and ultimate redemption, which in exchange will motivate us and hopefully will bring us to the point that we can get it done. That's what we're holding. Now we're holding 27 years later, and it's shocking that Vadayin Lo Neshanu. And I guess we haven't taken it seriously enough. I mean, on the one hand we say, what else can we do? We've done everything. But on the other hand, obviously there's one last push. There's one last oomph that needs to be done to complete it. So, with that in mind, we're going to learn, and the classes that we started a few years ago, learning about Moshiach, which is now already 120-something classes. We are going through the Torah and finding Moshiach in every pasuk and every episode. And it's interesting how Punkt today, perfect for today, we reached a pasuk that is so appropriate on so many different layers to Chav Ches Nisan, to the time we're in right now. We're holding by the birth of when Rivka Imenu, our Holy Mother Rivka, gives birth. So in the last psukim we were learning about the prophecy regarding her birth, her pregnancy, and everything that she was foretold about the future regarding the birth, and we were learning how Moshiach that is. But now we're holding actually in Bereshis, Perek Chav Hei, Pasuk Chav Dalet, at a very, very special pasuk. And as you're going to see, how all aspects of this pasuk, talk and point to the Geula in a very big way. I do want to make a little just short, not announcement, but alert. I'm using a phone that I noticed after I started using it, that it has one bar on it. It's not a cell phone, so usually these phones, when they have one bar, can last much longer. I hope it will. If I do get disconnected, please don't leave the call. I'll call right back from a different number. So if I suddenly go silent, it's hopefully because Moshiach came and we're just like completely blown away by that. And I can't even talk. That would be hopefully the reason, if anything, to go silent in the middle of the class. Or it's because I had to reconnect. Okay, so bear that in mind. All right, now we're ready to go over here. It's Perek Chav Hei Pasuk Chav Dalet. So it says like this in the pasuk: Vayimluhu yameha loledes, and her days were filled to give birth. V'hinei Simon bebitna, and behold, there are twins in her stomach, in her womb. Basically, she completed her pregnancy, and she gave birth to full term. That's what it means. Rashi right away points out that later on in Chumash, in Sefer Bereshis, there is another birth, and over there as well, it's twins. And by that birth, it doesn't say Vayimluhu Yameha Loledes, because at that birth, it wasn't a full pregnancy. Tamar gave birth to her twins from Yehuda. It was an incompleted pregnancy. It was a pregnancy, a 7-month pregnancy. This pregnancy is a full-term pregnancy of 9 months. So that's what it means. Vayimlu Yamel Laledes. And it says, V'nei Simon, behold, and there are twins. Now, the word Simim, twins, is spelled noticeably without a letter which should be there. What should be there is an aleph, because usually the word that you use for twins is te'umim. When you add an aleph, then you have the word te'umim. So v'hinei te'umim bebitna. Behold, there are twins. It doesn't say with an aleph, it says it without an aleph. V'hinei te'umim bebitna. So again, Rashi makes note that because one of them was not a tzaddik, over here the twins, one was a great tzaddik, of course, Yaakov Avinu, not only one of our forefathers, but the chosen of our forefathers. But the other one was an extremely wicked man, Esav, and for that reason, the aleph is lacking because there's a certain deficiency in this birth. The deficiency is that wickedness is coming into the world, so it's not complete. Again, juxtaposing it with what it says later in the parsha, to the other birth, further, not in this parsha, but later in Sefer Bereshis, when you have the birth of the 2 sons of Tamar, they were both tzaddikim. So over there it says te'umim with an aleph. Okay, make note of that. So now, there is a very interesting chizkuni, basically saying what Rashi says, but adding a certain dimension of clarity. The chizkuni says on the words v'hinei toimim. It's interesting. He points out not the lacking of the aleph, he points out the lacking of the yud. In truth, it's missing an aleph and a yud. Yud aleph. Yud aleph is the 11th. We know that's the number of Moshiach, related to the 11th. It's interesting. Rashi says, but by the next birth, it's a complete te'umim. It's with the yud and with. I never noticed that. See, right when you're giving a shir, I'm noticing that the one that's dealing with the birth of Peretz and Zarach, which is the birth of the days of Mashiach, has a yud and an aleph in it, which is related to Mashiach's neshama, which is completely connected to number 11. Wow, that was an insight I just had right now, because the Balaturim Taka says that Saimim chaser yud v'aleph, shechaser yud aleph. There's a yud aleph missing. But the yud aleph is going to come later. But the Chizkuni is pointing out this lacking a yud. And he says the reason is because usually twins are very much alike each other. Okay, they compare to each other. Avolkani says echad ish sa'ir. So here they're very unalike. One of them was a hairy fellow. Echad ish chalak. The other one was smooth. Esav noilad Orel. Esav was born an Orel, and Orel means uncircumcised. The Yaakov noilad Mohel, and Yaakov was born circumcised. Echad admoini. One of them was a redhead, or completely red. Echad yafet. The other one was very, very, very pleasant to look at. He wasn't intense. He was fair-skinned, or regular. Esav chazer. You see, the Chizkuni is getting a little intense as he's speaking. One of them is compared to a pig. The Yaakov set. Yaakov is compared to a sheep, to a lamb. Imkein, if so, he asks the question, if they're so different, so why are they born together? What's the she'ein kash b'loy tvua, ve'ein tvua b'loy kash? Yaakov and Esav are really one entity in the sense that there's klipa and peri. Klipa and peri are connected. The klipa is a shell. Just like when wheat kernels grow, they grow with a klipa, with an outside, with kash, with straw, with whatever else it's called, that what surrounds the grains. But it says by Esav, the base Esav lekash. In other words, Esav is chas v'shalom, not just here. Yitzchak would not have a child who was an extra piece of troublemaker in this world. If Esav is finished, and when the grains are completed, when the kernels are completed, and they can provide and they can create life-sustaining bread, so too, when holiness and godliness is developed in the world, it comes with a shell. And the shell is there, and it needs to help us. Like we know, the Jewish people are developed in the exile throughout the Gullus. But what happens in the end? He brings the pasuk, Beis Esav Lakash. And what happens to Kash? After it's over, it gets scattered in the wind. It gets blown away. It looks so, while it's growing, it looks like you're looking at the field, all you see is the Kash. You don't even see the kernels. They're hidden there. You know that inside are the kernels. So they make up so much of the presence of what's there. And someone might even think that the reason why you planted and you sowed the field is just for all this stalks of grain. But once the thing is finished, and you separate the kash, you separate the outside from the pneumias, and you take out the pneumias, and then what do you do with the kash? You throw it to the wind, and it gets scattered to the wind. And that's going to happen. So first of all, that's a very, very important idea, to appreciate the relationship of the Jewish world, the non-Jewish world. There is a certain interaction, and that's why we know that throughout history, the avodah is for Yidden, in addition that the Jewish people themselves are the kernels, there is also the gerim that are in Esav, and which we know gerim means twofold. There's the gerim, the converts, which are actually people who after it's done, Esav turns into Kash. So I do want to make an interesting observation. If anybody is noticing, the world leader today's days, of course, has been the Esav world, has been the European countries. Eventually, the leadership role was taken by the United States in the last 100 years and the like. We see that something is going on now in the sense that there's such instability in government. I don't remember ever such instability in which the government, every day people are flying, this is happening, that's happening, in between the Democrats and the Republicans. There is such accusation, and there's constant, there isn't a day that there isn't another scandal. The scandals are like nonstop. Something is indicating that something is falling, something is crumbling. Now, obviously, as we're soon going to see, there are certain indicators that are showing another nekuda that we're going to see also hinted to in this pasuk. But one Inyan, this idea that there's a certain birur that needs to happen where Yaakov has to be mevarer Esav, and then afterwards Esav stands and when he turns out to be Kash, we're beginning to see that Inyan. We've seen that a while, but now it's a very, very strong sense that one wind and the whole thing topples over. There's such an instability. That's number one. The other very interesting thing is, when the pasuk says "Vayimlu Yamel Aledas," it says "Vihine Toimim Bebitna," behold, it's twins. So it's a little strange because the twins, Bebitna, was not only by Vayimlo Yamei Laledes, it's not like after she completed her pregnancy and then there were twins. They were twins from the beginning. The whole pregnancy, that's why we learned earlier that she ran, she couldn't stand what's happening. And they told her, because the pains that she was experiencing during pregnancy was intolerable. They told her, you have twins. So what does it mean? Now there's twins. As if this is didn't happen before. It's an interesting thing. So there's a sefer called Ezer Eliyahu. And it's from someone from Drobich. Now, exactly when he lived, I was trying to do some research on who he is. He brings him over here in Yalkut Geula Moshiach. He says a name. I'm trying to Google it and get some more information. If this is from the early Chassid Rabbeim, it's not. We all know Rabbi Yitzchak Drobitcher, the father of Rabbi Michal Zlotchev. But who he is, Rabbi Leo of Drobitcher, I'm not exactly sure. But in any case, he says something really, really special. And again, I'm saying that it's Mamash Bashgacha Pratis that we're learning this on Erev Chav Nisan, because there are so many in Yanim over here that are so amazing that this pasuk. Because the pasuk is talking about the birth, and Moshiach is a birth. But over here he says like this. He says, he asked this question. What does it mean, after Vayimlo Yamel Oledes, after she completes, it's time for her to give birth? And he says, the idea is like this. Just like the Chizkuni had mentioned that how can you even call them twins? There couldn't have been people more different one than the other. There's no similarity at all between Yaakov and Esau. So Taka says the reason they're unified is why? Because you need to have kash, you need to have the straw to protect the wheat, and then it separates fine. But still, that doesn't really seem to justify the reason they're called twins. They grow together, but they're not similar. So therefore, he adds another dimension. The other dimension is that we know that there is Esav Bisman Hazeh. But then there is the toiv of Esav, the good of Esav. This is what we say, that Esav becomes mefuzar, becomes scatters and loses his power because he becomes like Kash, and Yaakov burns him completely. In that burning of Esav, there is the chitzanius of him that Taka becomes scattered. But then there's the pnimius of Esav that gets elevated in two ways. Part of it becomes where the Nitzutze Kedusha that are in Esav are Megayer and become converted and become part of Kedusha. But then there's another inyan, is that Esav himself, in his tzior, as being Esav, becomes a Bal Tshuva. In other words, he assists the Jewish cause. Instead of Esav making Churban Beis HaMikdash, being red and destroying the Beis HaMikdash, Esav has a change of heart, and he becomes a supporter not only for the Jewish people, but he supports the ultimate Jewish cause, which is the rebuilding of Eretz Yisroel, the building and Moshiach Tzidkenu. And it says, at the time of the Geula, Esav will do tshuva. And it's also hinted to Daka this week in the Parasha Shmini, that we're learning already now for the third time. Esav is compared to a chazir. Why is he compared to a chazir? Chazir means from the word lachazor, to return. So it means that Esav is going to return. He's going to do tshuva. Asid chazir litar, the pig is going to become tar. There's a whole question if that means bekashrus. How can it be? The Torah doesn't change. So how can the chazir become kosher? But if we say it's not referring to the physical pig becoming kosher to eat, but it's referring to the symbolic pig, it refers to Esav, is that Esav becomes tahar. The meaning of Esav's tahara is that Esav becomes an ally for Kedusha. So that Beno B'chaya Taka brings that us, it's amazing. This week in the Parsha, look it up. In the Pasuk, when the Chayas by the Chazer, he says clearly that the Asid, that the Beis HaMikdash Hashlishi, he says the first Beis HaMikdash was built through Shlomo HaMelech. The second Beis HaMikdash was built through Ezra and Nehemiah, even though Kairesh actually was the one who gave him permission. The third Beis HaMikdash, he says, is Asid Zu Livnoisa. This nation is going to build it. And so that's interesting talk. And I don't think, as I mentioned many times, I know it's very controversial, but it doesn't change Dafka because of that. It doesn't make a difference. This whole phenomena that we're witnessing today is a very, very strange thing that to me is so indicative that Mahaltach Mamish by the Geula Shlema, that Moshiach Tzidkenu has grabbed already even the White House and transformed it. And that's why Taka, what did we learn earlier? Yaakov is white and Esav is red. And Taka, the one occupying the White House, is red. Look at him, he's red. And all of his symbols are so symbolic or so symptoms of Esau. And yet, in all matters concerning what is important to further the Geula, he's on board. Not only on board, he actually cleaned up his cabinet right before Pesach and kicked out anybody that was an interference and brought in everybody. That's amazing. So that's the thing. Oh, so that's the meaning. Only when, you hear this? He says an amazing thing. Only when Vayimlo Yamel Ledes. Only he says the birth, that's the Geula. And Rivka is the Shechina. We're talking about the Jewish people giving birth, or the Shechina Akdosha giving birth to the Geula. Vayimlu Yamel Ledes. After when it comes to the very, very final end, and the birth of the Geula has to happen, then there's going to be twins. Then Yaakov and Esav will be twins. Until the Geula, Esav is wicked. Esav is our Rasha Merusha. Esav is the one persecuting, bringing about crusaders, bringing inquisition, bringing Holocaust, bringing who knows what on the Jewish people. But b'soif shel davar, b'soif shel davar, what happens? Esav does tshuva, v'hinei toim, and then he becomes win for Esav, for Yaakov, because he joins in the effort to build the third Beis HaMikdash. And this nevuas and these amazing things we're only seeing in the last 2 years. We're seeing it happening right now. And that's really something that is something to be extremely, extremely aware of and excited about. It's a very, 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 very powerful Indian. So this is the idea. But who is going to make this transformation? Who is going to take Esav and convert Esav? This is not, it's not himself. It's not like Esav has Yirudei Tshuva. This itself is the avoid of Moshiach Tzidkenu. The Rebbe's here, Inyan of Moshiach, is this, that he's changing the Goyim, changing the Yidden that the Eibishter gave us. You know, we're helping Yidden do Tshuva. We're doing Miftzayim. We're all the Miftzayim of the Rebbe. We reached the entire world, got Yidden to do Tshuva. But the Iker of changing the nations on a global scale, that's the avoid of Moshiach Tzidkenu himself. And like Moshe Rabbeinu deals with Paroi, but by Paroi he had to break Paroi. But now he's going to change the nations. So that changing of the nations is the avoid of Moshiach Tzidkenu. So therefore, the Rebbe points out, Taka, on this pasuk, in Likutei Sichos Chelik Lamed, the Rebbe says an interesting thing. When it says V'hinei soimim, there are twins. So Rashi says, suddenly Rashi pipes up, and Rashi says, over here it's soimim chaser. Over here, the twins that are being born are lacking, as I mentioned earlier, because one of them is wicked. But the next Leda, the Leda that's going to happen when Peretz is going to give birth. I'm sorry, when Tamar is going to give birth to Peretz and Zarach, it's Tu'umim. It says complete. And remember, what's it the Malay? That's Gevaldik. This I didn't notice. Again, I said earlier, it's filled with a Yud Aleph. That's the power of Yud Aleph of 11 that's going to make it full. And that's what the birth of Mashiach, because Peretz is the birth of Mashiach. And what's Mashiach called? And he's called Peretz. And what's Peretz mean? Uparatzta. Paratzta means he breaks the boundaries. Which boundaries does he break? He breaks the boundaries of Esav. Esav Harasha. Esav that's not considered a twin of Yaakov. Esav that can't go to the table and look eye to eye with Yaakov, because Fakert, he's always trying to break him and destroy him. He's poidates all the Gedarim, Moshiach Tzidkenu, and what does he do? He fixes this Ti'um. So the Rebbe is saying, the reason why Rashi suddenly, you're learning over here, Parshas told us, this Mishnah Mechamarein over here. Just because later there is going to be another Tu'umim that's going to be Mole. Explain that later. Why is that Negei over here? Says, no, because when you're learning in Yaakov and Esav, you have to know who's going to be the Tikkun for Esav. A mess was created, and we have to right away designate who's going to clean up this mess. Who's going to clean up this mess? Moshiach Tzidkenu. And like it says in the pasuk, "Va'olu Moshiach b'har Tzion lishpot es har Esav." That Moshiach, who's Moshiach? Moshiach Tzidkenu, and he's going to go up b'har Tzion lishpot es har Esav. V'hoisel Hashem Amlucha, and then Hashem Amluch. I do want to say an interesting thing that I've said already a couple of months ago on Yud Beis Tammuz, but it's kedai to chazer this again right now, especially Chav Ches Nisan, and to understand and appreciate this idea. Something very, very special that occurred to me, an insight on Yud Beis Tammuz itself. I had like a flash. I remember in the morning I was in shul, And suddenly when I was saying this pasuk, only Moshiach Ba'aretz Tzion Sheba'aretz Esav, I had this epiphany, and I think it's correct, even though it's my Egen Torah, but I think it hopefully is right. The Inyan is definitely correct. So the idea is a very interesting thing, especially this year we're holding 90 years since Yud Beis Tammuz. And since it's 90 years, and we know that the Giyul of the Friediger Rebbe is already I saw in the Sikha, Tafshin Memches, Pasha Shmini, the Rebbe is talking very strongly about this year is like a year of Shmini, Shmeina, Shmeina. It's 8 times Shmini. And the power of Geula is the power of 8. That's why the whole Kochen Moshiach began Be'ikr by the Friediger Rebbe. The Rebbe Rashab already was laying the platform by creating Tamchet Tamimim and saying that there's going to be 2 generations that are going to be fighting. One is going to be fighting Yiddishkeit, the other one is going to be fighting Moshiach. And he's creating over here the Chayola Beis David to fight that. But Be'ikr is the Friediger Rebbe started, the Alta L'Tshuva, the Alta, the whole Kochen Moshiach. And the reason is because the Friediger Rebbe is the 8th, and Moshiach is number 8. It's hinted to in the word Moshiach that the Ches of Moshiach is 8. So, but the Friediger Rebbe himself, the Friediger Rebbe Taka went through and he was faced with Esav. The Friediger Rebbe was faced with Esav, and Esav in his worst, Esav in his most achzariistic form was the Soviets. And they wanted to crush Yiddishkeit, like at the end of Golas, to come and to actually break, destroy, v'lo yizach Hashem Yisroel. It was mamash a war against the Eibishter, against Torah and mitzvahs. It was like a reincarnation of the Romans, and maybe even to a certain degree even a harsher. And at that time, right, so the Friediger Rebbe was the one, and he went in to the Kishkes. He was arrested, and he was taken into them, and they wanted to Chas v'shalom finish the Friediger Rebbe off. And at that time, the Friediger Rebbe broke them. It's a brach in the klippus. He ate them out from inside. He like ate up their stomach from within. And Taka, after they were forced to release the Friediger Rebbe. Once the Friediger Rebbe came out, slowly but surely, the Soviet Union disintegrated. Taka took 70 years, but he ate them up and he destroyed them. And at Kedekach, in the end, there was nothing left of them, garnished. Obviously, the Friediger Rebbe together with the Rebbe was a complete Moshiach. That's the idea of Oli Moshiach. But who's the Har Esav? So I said earlier, there's 2 faces to Esav. And the Rebbe says it also in the Sichos. The Rebbe says in Parshas Vayishlach that there's 2 Esavs. There's an Esav that he's called Roimi, where he's Meroimim against the Eibishter. But then there's going to be another Esav, when you're Mavared Esav, where Esav becomes an ally and assistance to Kedusha. And L'chura, the Malchus Shel Chesed of the United States, from its foundation, and then especially as it's turning out now, America has always been an assistance to the Jewish people, besides in the previous administration and the owners of Chas v'Shalom. We saw Nisim v'Niflois, how the Eibishter thwarted all of that and put us back with a president that's supporting the Jewish cause. But here I want to say a very amazing thing. The Olu Moshiach Ba'aretz Tzion. So the Friediger Rebbe came out of Russia, then the Friediger Rebbe went to Poland. And then the Friediger Rebbe was ready to come to America. But instead of going, interesting, before the Friediger Rebbe came to America, the Friediger Rebbe went first to Eretz Yisrael. I think it was the first time that the Friediger Rebbe was going, right after he came out of his this, and he was in Poland, he went to visit. Now I think it was the first time he came to America, not yet Amanas Lis Yashiv. Maybe, I'm very not good with dates, so I'm sure people listening over here might know much better than me, and I didn't read this again to have it clear in my head, but it's a dachtzach. Okay, I'm saying what's a dachtzach. Don't take my word to absolute, but definitely, when the Friediger Rebbe came to the United States, he made a detour. He went first to Eretz Yisrael, and then he came to America. Now, l'chura, going to Eretz Yisrael for a detour to America is very strange. I mean, you go to America, maybe to a detour to Eretz Yisrael. So it's an interesting thing. We know that the Friediger Rebbe wasn't going to Eretz Yisrael, mitzad the Indian of going to Eretz Yisrael. The Friediger Rebbe was going to Eretz Yisrael because he couldn't go to Kivrei Avos. The Friediger Rebbe wanted to go to Kivrei Avos, and maybe it had to do with the idea that he wanted, because he knows he's going to America, and he has to deal with a whole new cultkeit and break the clip of America and develop transport Malchus Lubavitch and Malchus of Chassidus and all that to America, which is Chatzi Kader Atachtna, which is so hostile to Kedusha. The Friediger Rebbe needs extra Nesinas Koiches, so he wants to go daven by the Baal Shem Tov, by the Magid, or whatever, by the Lubavitch, and by his father and Rostov, and by the whatever. The Friedrich Rebbe wanted to go to Kivrei Avos, but he couldn't do it. So instead he went to Eretz Yisrael. And then he went to America. The interesting thing was when the Friedrich Rebbe came to America, I read this whole thing this year. Friedrich Rebbe went to visit Philadelphia. And the mayor of Philadelphia invited him, and they went to the Liberty Bell. And the Friedrich Rebbe was considered a hero, tremendous hero, because he fought for the rights of people that were oppressed in Russia, the Jews, persecution, and the like. So the mayor made a whole parade, and they brought him to the Liberty Bell. And over there's a chair, which is George Washington's chair. And the Friedrich Rebbe sat down. It's interesting. He invited, usually no one is allowed to sit down there. But certain people, heads of government, they give permission to sit down. The Friedrich Rebbe was treated like a head of government, and they let him sit down on the chair of George Washington. And I don't remember right now, but the Friedrich Rebbe spoke that true freedom is a freedom that's based on religion and based on a belief that God in Eberster. And the Friedrich Rebbe spoke about the greatness of the United States and so forth while he was sitting on that chair, and he, I think, even put flowers down, something like that. And it's an amazing to me. I was thinking, what occurred to me is, Va'olu Moshiach. The Friedrich Rebbe is Moshiach. He's beginning the process of Moshiach. Moshiach is Yisroel. Also, he himself wasn't, even though it's Moshiach means the ones that do the Yeshua, but he was also the one that had a Yeshua. He came out from the teeth. He came out from the lion's mouth, the lion's den of Esav. And Va'olu Moshiach. And where did he go? He went up a Har Tzion and went up to Eretz Yisrael, to Har Tzion. Because l'choyre, if you're going Lishpait to Har Esav, if you want to go to be Shofet Har Esav, why are you going up to Har Tzion? You should go up El Har Esav. Go on Har Esav, Lishpait to Har Esav. No, but you see from the Friedrich Rebbe, he went to Har Tzion to Eretz Yisrael. To what? To get the koiches, Lishpait to Har Esav doesn't mean to destroy Har Esav. Lishpait to Har Esav means to elevate Har Esav. Lishpait to Har Esav means to go to elevate. That's like to transform, to see what, right? To pick up Esav. So, which means to take dominance over Esav. When Friedrich Rebbe came to America, he sat down on George Washington's seat, the founder of, and he conquered that chair. And that's why you see that the Taka, the American president, is the one who declares Yerushalayim as the capital of the Jewish people. And I think it's all part of that conquest, the original conquest. I think it's all part of that original conquest, the conquest of Moshiach, the conquest of Moshiach, as we're talking about over here, that Moshiach Tzidkenu is the one who has to fix Esav. So that's why Rashi is hinting to that right over here. Rashi says over here that he makes a comparison. That over here, as soon as Esav is born and it's chaser, who's going to be memala the chasarin of Esav? That it should be twins. That should be Ta'im and Mole. He should be a twin. That's the Peretz, the other birth, which is the Melucha of Mashiach Tzidkenu, in which they're the ones who go to do this avodah, this inyan of the transformation, the complete transformation of Esav. Now, the other inyan that we get out from these psukim as well. In addition, so here we're seeing an amazing thing. First of all, we're seeing the inyan of base Esav lakash, that Esav is being turned into straw, in that the total disarray that there is in government. Meaning, even though Esav is now having a shinoi and a transformation, you're seeing a very weakness, because you have an investigation going on. It's almost like the ruler can't even rule with the full tkifos, because there is all questions on it. Whether it's not legitimate, not legitimate, that's not the inyan. The idea that there's the only president of the United States that ever had a power that's sitting over him and threatening him every moment that they might chas v'shalom impeach him, because they're looking, is showing on a certain weakness. Why is it weak? It's weak because now it's the time for Esav to be a puppet already in the hands of Yaakov. Now it's already the time for Mashiach's Malchus. The Zman of Esav's Malchus is already over. Like we find that also by V'yodei Achezes Ba'akev Esav. So Rashi says that Esav doesn't have a chance to be goymer his malucha, and Yaakov will take it over. And you see right now, Esav didn't finish its malucha. It's not like there's no more malucha. There is a malucha. But at the same time, Yaakov is already holding on to it and changing it. Moshiach Tzidkenu is in a complete control over Washington and governing exactly the way he wants of tzalachis from everybody. But at the same time, it's lakash, like we spoke earlier. It's mamish, weak and unstable. It's unbelievable. And as you're seeing over here, the tshuva of Esav is also seen, in which he becomes a twin and he goes hand to hand with Yaakov to build the third Beis HaMikdash. And how is it through who? This is the avoid of Moshiach Tzidkenu himself, as we spoke. But now there's another very interesting inyan, and that is, but Soif Kol Soif, Remazim, we've had so much and so many indicators, but Soif Kol Soif, when it comes Chav Ches Nisan, there's a Himmel Geschrei in which we all cry out at Masai, because Soif Kol Soif, Nisan is already passing. We have only a very, very short few days for Nisan. But Dain Lo Neshanu, that we should hear the Shofar Shel Moshiach, and we should have a full, absolute, complete Giyula. So here I want to share with you, on that end, something also hinted to in this pasuk, benegayah to this idea. And that is to the Rebbe's cry of Admasai, in the strongest way that the Rebbe gave on Chav Ches Nisan, and the empowerment that we should mean be'emes, the Admasai. We found an interesting thing. The Rebbe Bechlal was very, very fond of the Munkacher, the Minchas Elazar. The Rebbe was a very big follower of the Minchas Elazar. It's interesting because there are so many Go'onim and Tzadikim and of the previous generations, and still the Rebbe has like a certain chavivos for the Minchas Elazar. And it could be, besides the fact that he was very much in the chibur of Nigla and Chasidus and Pnimius HaTorah, which the Rebbe Bechlal liked very much. So there was a certain style to the Minchas Elazar, but it must be also there's something about him that the Rebbe saw in the Minchas Elazar. So I mentioned this actually Gimel Tammuz when I was speaking to the Nesheh in New York this past Gimel Tammuz. I mentioned the famous something that happened. The Rebbe brings this actually. The Minchas Elazar once spoke on. Here is it over here. Let me show it to you. I just want to pull it up. The Minchas Elazar once spoke about. Just to open this up here. Give me a second. All right, over here. The Minchas Elazar once spoke about on Shana Rabbah in 1934. He asked his chassidim, he asked all the people in shul, he says, I will ask you a question, my dear brothers. He says, if you were told that Mashiach is going to come literally today, but one condition, chas v'shalom, that you all have to give your lives up in order for Mashiach to come, will you be makabel upon yourself, mesiras nefesh, for this? And all of them answered, yeah. There was a willingness on their part to be moiser nefesh l'man biyas HaMashiach. So then, as I mentioned then, the Minchas Elazar himself got some objection. People wrote him and said, "Wie kommt such a thing? Where do you ever see something like that? That you're asking people to be? You have to be moiser nefesh for 3 averas. Wie kommt up with such a thing? You're asking people to be great, to be moiser nefesh for biyas HaMashiach." So he expresses himself. He says, "Ma'oi dehei tsar levavi." My heart is pained. In belavavai lo yav, if a yid chas v'shalom doesn't feel this, the yarigish b'pnimiyusai, that a yid doesn't feel in his pnimiyus, but ratzon toiv, willfully and good willfully the mesiras nefesh, to have mesiras nefesh is gala kvoid malchusai, that the Eibishter's glory should be revealed. V'achdusai is baruch shemai. And he goes and he brings from the Yaris Tavash from Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz that a person is obligated to say in his heart, Rebbeinu Shalom, the Master of the world, I am moiser nefesh for the sanctification of your name. And if I'm not worthy to see it, I'm willing to, he says, I'm willing to die al Kiddush Hashem, and my eyes won't see it. So that your name will be, that's what he brings from him. Anyways, this is the idea that I mentioned over there. So you can see, the Rebbe's person whose entire existence is Bias HaMashiach. And the Rebbe is so fond of the Minchas HaLazar. And you see the Minchas HaLazar also has complete Mesiras Nefesh for Geula, and he demands it from his Chassidim. The Minchas HaLazar's father, now obviously these things don't just happen in a vacuum. The Minchas HaLazar's father name was Reb Tzvi Hersh Shapiro, and he is known as for this famous sefer called the Darkei Tshuva. And he wrote a commentary on Shulchan Aruch. It's printed in Shulchan Aruch, a big, tremendous goyen. So he also wrote a sefer on Chumash, and it's called Teferes Bonim. And in that sefer, on this pasuk, Vayimlu Yamel Laledes, V'hinei Tovim Bebitna, he brings a fascinating thing. He says, you take a look in Targum, which Targum? Targum Yonason and Targum Yerushalmi, where both of them say like this. No, sorry, Targum Yonason, not Targum Yerushalmi, Targum Yonason. It says that when it says her days were completed to give birth, the Targum Yonason says she completed her 270 days. 270 days. Shloimi, it completed. Nishlam alasha shleimus. Masan v'shivin yoimim. 270 days. Abura of her ibur of her pregnancy, to give birth. So he asks a simple question. The Gemara says in Masechtas Nida that a full-term pregnancy is no less than 271, 272, 273. You look it up, regularly online. I looked up, they say a full pregnancy is in the vicinity of 280 days. But so the Gemara says it's more than 270. It doesn't happen earlier than 270. I mean, of course, unless it's a preemie, but generally a full-term pregnancy is 271. So he asks the question, how come the Targum Yonason says full pregnancy, her 270 days completed, and he doesn't say 271 at least? What does he stop with 270? So he says over here, but there's a very deep remez over here. The remez is like this, that when Yidden are in Golus, we know the Eibishter is also in Golus. As Rashi says, V'eshav Hashem shavuscha, the Shechina goes along with the Yidden wherever they are, and that's when Moshiach comes. It doesn't say Hashem will bring you back, but it says Hashem himself will return. The Shav, Hashem is going to return with the exiles. So, and therefore he says, and we know the Shechina is called Tzion. That's the name of, one of the names of the Shechina is Tzion. He says that's the meaning we say when we open up. It's good to have a deeper meaning in davening. When we open up the Aron HaKodesh, after we take out the Sefer Torah, we say, Heitiva b'rtzayncha es Tzion. Do good, b'rtzayncha, with your goodwill, es Tzion to Tzion. Simply, we all think it means Yerushalayim. But he says, we're asking, Eibishter, do good for the Shechina. Heitiva b'rtzayncha es Tzion. Do good for the Shechina. Meaning, basically, what do we say? We're saying, we might not be worthy for the redemption. We could be, maybe we didn't do tshuva, maybe we are not ready yet, maybe for whatever reason we still need to kunim. But Eitiva b'tzayin chasiyon, the Shechina didn't sin. So Eitiva b'tzayin chasiyon, you should have rachmanas on the Shechina. He therefore also teaches another interesting pasuk, famous pasuk that we're familiar with, especially during the 3 weeks. Tzion b'mishpat tipada, v'shaveha b'tzdaka. Tzion herself, b'mishpat, with judgment, tipada will be redeemed. V'shaveha, and her captives, b'tzedakah, through righteousness. So he says like this. The meaning is like this. We sometimes maybe don't have the chutzpah to tell the Eibush, even though the Rebbe said we should have the chutzpah because we've already endured. But the Rebbe was speaking already post-Holocaust. The Darkei Tshuva was living before all those tzaddis. And I mean, there's felt tzaddis by Yidden before that. But Al Kapanim, he says, even if we don't have the right to demand the Geula on our own behalf, but the Shechina, she definitely didn't sin. Why should she suffer her horrible suffering? So he says that's the meaning of Tzion b'mishpat tipada. The Tzion, the Shechina b'mishpat, with judgment, with righteousness. She deserves tipada to be redeemed. The Shavel and her captives, that means the rest of the Jewish people, that's b'tzedakah. That's going to be automatically. Once you do already take back the Shechina, you didn't come along. Even it's going to be a tzedakah, a righteousness on the Eibishter, meaning undeserved on our end. But then he says, so that's the meaning of our pasuk. Rivka, he says, is known in Svarim as the Shechina. It's called Rivka. Vayimluhu yameha laledes means it already came time. She's already overdue. That's the meaning. Vayimlu, shen ungefüllt, yamel, her days, laledes, with birth. And what does it mean, Vayimlu Yaleda? So the Targum says she has already 270 days. 270 represents, is the gematria of Ra, evil, Ra, Tsaris. So Vayimlu Meseshin Soiva, she's already ongezat, she's already satiated with Tsaris. She suffered already so much that Vayimlu Yamel, that's why he says Dafka 270 gematria Ra. The 270, the Inyan of Ra that the Shekhinah had gone through already, it's already full. It's already reached the top of the cup. And therefore now, what happens? Now it's time for the Eibishter to emerge as Toimim. What does it mean, Toimim? Toimim means twins. So the Gemara says an interesting thing. Or it's a medrash in Kehelis. Ma Tu'umim, just like twins. If one of them has a headache, margish chavere margish, one feels immediately the other's pain. Twins are so deeply connected to each other, they each feel each other's aches and pains. So too, once it's Yimlu Yamel Aledas, and it's time already for the birth to happen, and the Shekhinah is in pain, the Jewish people are in pain, is the Chazikher, without a single doubt, Vihine Tu'umim Bebitna. That means that the Eibishter, who is the Ta'oimim, to Umasi, feels the pain of the Shekhinah and of the Jewish people, and therefore the Eibishter already has to bring the Geula. And that's where we conclude. We conclude now with a tremendous Admasai, with a tremendous thing that Baruch, that Alza Durach gemacht, every Cheshbin, every Inyan, everything. We're holding already Tafshin Ayin Ches. All the Simanim HaGeula here. There's never been such a Shasa Kosh. We're Shmini, Shmeina, Shmeina. We're a year of 8. We're on every level and on every angle. I mean, there's already all the simanim, and Rubashkin had already a Geula Pratis, and which was also a chelik of this Geula. Everything is there already. Meanwhile, Chodesh Nisan, and there's already, coming to the end, and Admasa. So now we say, the Eibishter should know that his twin, and the Eibishter feels it, but the Eibishter sees that we care, and we care with an emes. And that we're devoted, and we're never going to stop. We're not going to stop for a moment, demanding and pushing and calling and relentlessly, like the Rebbe taught us, to be completely relentless in our demands for the Geula, is zicher, without a shadow of a doubt, that they were going to have the Geula Shalema, and may it happen now, without Chas v'Shalom, even 1 second delay. Moshiach now. As Hashem, we'll see everyone in Yerushalayim are ready for next week's class. Ooh.